Hey, welcome back, everybody. Sarcasm Speaks, Jared and Bob here. Shout out to Mitch, friend of the show, who's supposed to join us, couldn't make it. We'll get him back at some point. He was supposed to be on one day last week, too, and it didn't work. I don't know. Apparently, he's a busy guy. Guy has some kind of fucking schedule or whatever. Who knows? Um, but we are back from a mini hiatus, right? We did two episodes last Sunday. Now we're back at it today. Um, a little bit, a little bit has happened.
It actually was a week from Friday.
Oh yeah, we did. We did Friday. That's right. It
Yeah.
was the Friday after Christmas. So it wasn't even Sunday. Yeah, that's right. Because you guys left Saturday, right?
Yes.
Um, yeah. So a couple things have happened since then that we'll touch on today. But before we get to, the bigger stuff, um, we have two loser laps to take. Um, well, not really. Maybe one and a half. Um, Jimmy Carter died finally. And I say finally, everyone's like, "Oh, that's awful." Have you seen pictures of him lately?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
He looked like he died 9 months ago. Like he looked like the corpse of Jimmy Carter. It
Yeah, it was,
wasn't a good look.
yeah, not great.
Yeah, did not look good. Quality of life, not there. Trust me. He's better off wherever he is now. Um, so I say I hesitated on the loser lap because we did have him as a show pick last year, which
Yeah.
we also need to do that episode. I need to throw out the bad signal to everybody and uh
Yeah.
and get
Maybe
that
next
back.
Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, we could probably do that. Um
I was thinking of that. I told Michaela, I go, let me know if you
oh,
got someone. I
yeah.
go, like, thinking outside the box.
Yeah. Yes, we'll see what we can come up with.
So we'll work on it.
Yeah. So yeah, Jimmy Carter dead. He was a show pick, right? Because Jones actually had him as one of his picks in 2022. So 2 years ago, Jones thought he was going to die, and he made it all the way
I
till
mean,
last
dude,
week.
dude, he was 98 then.
Yeah, yeah. So shout out to President Jimmy Carter. Was he the? I don't even know. Maybe the 37th president of the United States. I have no idea.
No clue.
Um, so then, a sad one, right? Or a little bit more sad, I suppose, because he was younger, and it was also I thought it was unexpected, but I think he might have had cancer. Was Greg Gumbel, um, the sports announcer for ESPN? He did Monday Night Football, right? A long time ago. That
CBS.
was okay, CBS.
He's been CBS for a long time
Okay.
because he is, in fact, not Mike Tirico.
Yeah. Well, he's
That is a different person because I got confused for a second.
oh, yeah.
Greg he's been CBS, like
Well,
the
there's
1 o'clock
also
window.
Bryant Gumbel too. Is his brother, I think.
Yeah. The only reason I even know that guy exists is because he used to be a Chappelle show joke, like
Yeah.
semi frequently.
I think Bryant Gumbel was ESPN.
So, as far as I know, Brian Gumbel was like a political or news anchor. Not, I don't think he did sports. But again, truth be told, I had no idea who he was
Yeah, he
until,
hosted it was on HBO. It was Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel.
oh, I thought he was like a political or news guy because when they made a joke about him on Chappelle's show, I had no idea who he was.
So he was the co-host of the Today Show for 15 years.
Oh, okay. So he was okay. So he
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but then he had the Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel show. Uh, yeah. So I don't know. I don't actually know what happened. Yeah, he did have cancer. Yep. He died from cancer.
Mm.
So he was 78.
Looked good for 78.
Yeah, I had no idea he was 78. So, um, yeah. I mean, I said at the beginning it's sad because he was younger. I mean, listen, 78 is the average.
Isn't that the life expectancy?
That's the life expectancy in the United States. So, someone dies at
You
78.
made
Yeah,
it.
it can still be tragic for sure, but it's
Yeah, it's neither young nor old.
yeah, you hit the mark. Congratulations, you were average. Someone somewhere is like, wow, that's a fucking terrible thing to say.
It
But
is a terrible thing to say, but
yeah,
you can't say he's young nor old.
correct. Correct. Yeah, that's actually that's kind of funny. Because a lot of times you're like, oh wow, you hit like Jimmy Carter, he was 100. Like, oh man, what a great life. He was super old, right? He's
Yeah,
a
he was.
centenarian, right? He's super old. Or it's tragic, like when someone dies, in their 30s, right? Or someone like a rapper, it doesn't have to be a rapper, but often it's some sort of musician, right? It's some kind of drug overdose. They die at like 30, right? Like Mac Miller. I went to a rapper again. Um, but, um, like Jimi Hendrix, right? Janis Joplin, pick one. That's tragic, right? Because they're super young, right? Or if someone just dies, someone has a heart attack, right? And drops dead in their 50s or 60s, right? You're like, oh my God, that's so sad. They were so young. They're only 62 or whatever, right? Someone's 78 when they die. It's like, well, you're neither too old nor too young.
Yeah, so I think when they're 78, that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just kind of stops there.
Yeah. So shout out to Greg Gumbel. It's a terrible way to shout him out, but um all right, so now on to the rest of the news. So, in the time since we last recorded, there were two events. One of them, I think, was is pretty clear. It's being labeled as a terrorist attack. Um, the one in New Orleans, because there was an ISIS flag found in the pickup truck, um, or on it somewhere, whatever. The other one is kind of interesting that we'll get to, and I've listened to a couple podcasts on and things like that. So, um, the first one, obviously, it's awful. It was in New Orleans, right? Where New Orleans is a special place to this podcast.
New Orleans.
Yeah, it's the best place in the world, according to some.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's dirty, it's disgusting, it's nasty, it's awesome.
But it is shitty, right? It was New Year's Day morning, right? It was like 3 a.m. on New Year's Day, so it was like still the night of New Year's Eve. Um, but someone drove around a police barricade at the end of Bourbon Street and then flew like I don't know how fast they were going, but it was pretty quick. Look, probably 60, 70 miles an hour down Bourbon Street um, at 3 a.m. when there's people on the street. I don't know specifically off the top of my head how many people died. But it was
I think it was 10 at first.
okay. Yeah, I was gonna say probably
I
around a
don't know
dozen.
if I don't know if more people have passed since.
Yeah. A lot of people were injured. It's a it's an awful thing, right? The the interesting thing there, right? And this is purely just I think it's interesting because Bourbon Street has barricades on the end of the each end of the street, right? They put those barricades up nightly, right? When they because they shut down the street at I don't know what time, 4 or 5 o'clock, maybe. Maybe it's earlier. I
There's
don't know.
probably I don't know, but yes,
Yeah,
they do have the tensions that go in the ground.
because during the day there are cars that drive down Bourbon Street, right? That's the thing. But at some point during the day, every day they shut it down, right? They have those big barriers at each end, and then they also have stanchions throughout. So a couple odd things there were one in an interview, that the superintendent of the police department in New Orleans was giving. She said she was unaware that there were any barricades that existed. I've been there once. You've been there twice. Um, I knew they were there.
You can't drive down Bourbon Street
Yeah,
at night.
I knew they were there. But the
Nashville does the
superintendent
same thing.
of the New Orleans police force was like, "Oh, I was unaware of any barrier there."
But yeah, I don't
Oh,
not
oh,
following that one.
okay. All right. Well, that's a fun one. Um, the other thing, what I saw is because I did see the video, right? It's kind of hard to avoid the videos when you're on Twitter. Um, the pickup truck drove around a cop car that was blocked. It was parked perpendicularly to the street, like blocking traffic to the street. So it drove like around the cop car and like onto the sidewalk to get down Bourbon. Um, what I found out was those barricades that do exist, by the way, that's news to the superintendent. The barricades that do exist that are there were under maintenance. They were under repair. So they were inoperable. So that's why the police cruiser, there was one single police cruiser parked sideways across the road. And clearly it wasn't good enough because the guy just drove around the cop car, right? Um, I mean, coincidence, probably, right? A shitty coincidence. Um, but it's just one of those things. Maybe the guy knew, right? Maybe the guy knew ahead of time. He did some research, and found out that, the barricades were under repair, right? They were missing.
Well, they may have also, because if the barricades are under repair, that means they've been gone for a while,
True.
like at least a few days to a week or something.
Yeah, that's not something that you're just going to turn around in like a day.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I mean, like, so the police car being that way, it was never going to stop it was never going to stop someone who really wanted to get through.
Right.
The idea is if someone was driving around the French Quarter and it's like, oh, I'll take a left. And it's like, no, that road is closed.
Right.
Like, it's like anytime a road's closed around here, it's like, if the road's
Yeah.
closed, it's like, well, if you really want to go down that road, you typically can.
Right. Right.
Now, the barriers, the permanent barriers, they make it a little bit harder. But again, it's like I'm trying to remember if it's New Orleans. I think it's New Orleans. They got like the stanchions that go in into the ground and like
They
lock
also
it.
have the Batman ones, like in the Dark Knight when they fucking throw up the steel plates that like can just lay flat in the ground and then they just stand up straight.
Okay.
They have those ones too.
I mean, they probably have a combination of a lot of things.
Right.
But even those, it's like if the stanchions are in, I'm like, could someone still like if they want to, could they still
Right.
get through? And they might like
Yeah.
scrape up the side, drive on the sidewalk, and you're through.
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's probably just like you hate to say this because it's a terror attack, but it might have just been like well planned,
Yeah. Could have been.
um, or taking advantage of a situation. The other thing too is I'm obviously no terrorist, so I don't know if someone was like, hey, was maybe like, hey, there's kind of no barriers down Bourbon Street, and it's the new year, like, why don't you fly on down? And it's like,
Right.
okay, here I am, go
Yeah.
time.
Well, the guy that was killed afterwards because he got into a shootout with the cops there. Um, he was ex-military. He was in the army. So, I mean, it's come out like who he was, his rank and stuff like that. And it turns out he was basically like an HR paper pusher guy in the military. He wasn't like front lines, like kicking in
Yeah,
doors and, you know, throwing his body on the line.
yeah.
But he one of the podcasts I listened to, literally, they said, so he was in HR. right? Like that's basically what he did. Um,
Accountant for the police department.
yeah. um, but nevertheless, he was still in the army, so he was still trained, right? There, everyone still gets a certain level of training. So I'm sure he was able to figure something out. Um, and the podcast that I did listen to that talked about it was interesting because the take on it from that guy, and I forget, I think it was the Sean Ryan, one of the Sean Ryan podcasts that I listened to, um, was he doesn't think that ISIS was actually behind this. He thinks that what happened was this guy got radicalized, right, by ISIS and, Muslim support, whatever. And these are this guy's words, not mine. I'm paraphrasing. And he said he was basically a loser, right? That didn't belong, but wanted to. So he decided he was going to commit this act of terror and then do it with an ISIS flag, like under the banner of ISIS, effectively, right? But like ISIS didn't call him up and say, "Hey, go do this,"
Yeah,
right? Like, does that kind of make sense? Is how I'm trying to explain it?
makes sense to me.
Yeah. So that was the thing, right? And again, I forget who the guest was on Sean Ryan because I've listened to like four Sean Ryan podcasts in the last like week. Um, but they basically said like, yeah, this guy was just wanted to do something fucked up and like decided to do it under the banner of ISIS, right? This wasn't like a sleeper cell, right? It wasn't like a Manchurian candidate, right? That ISIS is, called up and told him to do this diabolical thing. He just kind of did it. Um, so yeah, I mean, mostly an isolated event. Again, it's terrible, but also like literally hours later, there was an explosion outside of Trump Tower in Vegas, where a Tesla Cybertruck exploded, and everyone was like, "What the fuck?" So these two things, like everyone immediately was like, "Oh no, they're linked." I don't believe in coincidences, all that stuff. Which, yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I would say the same. I don't believe in coincidences. But like now that we're, 5 days post this and we're able to gather some more information on both of them, I don't think they were related.
The other
Um,
thing, especially with them both being on New Year's Day, it's like their New Year's Day in major cities where a lot of people are.
right.
That to me kind of rule that would be like my first reason for things maybe not being linked.
Yeah.
It's almost like, hey, we picked the 4th of July in an East Coast like beach town. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, these three things
Exactly.
must be linked. It's like, maybe, but if you want to find people,
Right.
where
Right.
are people?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, like I said, I don't think they're linked because immediately everyone, once the names came out of both the guys, they were like, "Oh, they both were at Fort Bragg. Like something's going on. They're connected. They're part of this bigger thing." And it's like, no, they weren't, right? Because again, this isn't my personal opinion. I'm not an expert in this, but I'm just regurgitating all the information that I've gotten over the last week from various podcasts, right? Of people that are experts at this. Um, and again, everyone basically is under the assumption that the Louisiana guy was, they don't think he acted on his own, right? They think he had help. And I think the FBI is trying to find all the people that worked with him. Um, obviously he was the only guy driving the truck, but I think there were co-conspirators there. But I'm pretty sure it's not linked to the Cybertruck in Vegas. Um, now, the Cybertruck in Vegas is a super interesting situation because um, the guy, right, who came out which again, miraculously this cybertruck explodes, right? It has tons of fireworks and explosives in it and whatever. They can't, the body in the truck is so burned, they can't positively identify him, but they found the guy's license in the truck. So, okay, whatever. I'll play the game.
So Michaela this morning told me, she goes, put her off my phone. I go,
Yeah.
yeah. She goes, can't do it. It's too much. It's like everything's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Everything's this, everything's that. Nothing is like, you just can't find out what the fuck happened. Everything's got to be something else. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, based on what you've been telling me so far, I'm like, yeah, I can see that. It's super annoying. That's why I don't use the For You tab on Twitter. It's
Right.
fucking awful. I
Right.
just follow what I follow.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like, and I actually, I'm serious. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, someone's got an agenda. I'm like, literally, how the fuck does that happen?
Right. So this is where it gets weird, right? And this is where it gets super interesting. And this is why I don't know. I have no fucking idea because I don't think a lot of people that I listen to do have an idea of the Cybertruck explosion of what's really going on. So again, truck explodes, tons of explosives, fireworks, all this stuff. They find the guy's ID, right? But the body was too burned to identify, but they got his ID. So this guy who this ID belongs to, I think his name was Matt Berg or something like that. Um, he was not an HR paper pusher. He was a very informed, uh, you know, relatively high ranking. I don't think he wasn't like a colonel or a major or anything like that, but he was,
Lieutenant Colonel?
yeah, lieutenant colonel. Wait, I thought your name was lieutenant colonel. Um, so
Lieutenant Colonel who?
Um, he was involved in the drone program in the U.S. Army. He was also an expert in explosives, which, hey, that checks out. Um, so so before I even got into like the Sean Ryan episode with the guy, I think his name is Sam Shoat or Shoate, um, who like they broke this down because both of them actually received emails from this guy, Matt Berg. So apparently, right, of the things that I've pieced together, this guy, Matt Berg, was trying to be a whistleblower on alleged war crimes that the United States committed in Afghanistan in 2019. He was reaching out to a lot of different people under, you know, super encrypted fucking ways, whether it was Signal or Proton Mail or all this other stuff that I just learned about, right? That didn't know what Proton Mail was until 3 days ago. Um, but it's apparently something that
I've
like
only seen Proton Mail once in all my years of inputting people's info.
that's is that person ex-military or
I don't
like
know.
that's so what I found out was that's common use for anyone that has ever come in contact with like the intelligence branch of the US government or military because proton mail is like super encrypted and like it's I don't know, it's very protected whatever it is. So um again, this guy Matt Berg reached out to a bunch of different people trying to, say I have information that's going to change everything, but he wanted to meet with everybody before December 31st, right? So the way this podcast went is this guy, Sam Shoat, was sitting with Sean Ryan with a printed out email that he got. And he said he passed it on to the FBI already. He's both of them are fully cooperating with the FBI. And then they took a break, right? Halfway through the podcast. It was a quick one. It was only like 40 minutes long. And when they came back from the break, Sean Ryan had checked his emails and he had an email from the same guy. So, and in both emails, he was requesting to talk to both of them before December 31st. So again, piecing everything together, he had a plan that he knew what he was doing, right? He wanted to be a whistleblower on whatever the military or government did in 2019 in Afghanistan. And he said in his email that he was being followed by the government, whether it was Homeland or FBI or whoever. He goes, I don't know who it is, but they're following me and they're tracking me, and I'm going to disappear. So I need to do this. I need to talk by December 31st. So the general consensus, right, would be, well, that's because he was going to commit suicide and blow up his cybertruck, outside of this Trump hotel in Las Vegas. But some people are floating it out there that he's still alive and the body in the truck wasn't him. Um,
He was planted.
well, he could have left his ID
Or could have.
as a like, hey, this was me,
Yeah,
right?
like in the movies.
Yeah, but no. So not planted in the fact of they're trying to pin like they being like the government or like the dark
No,
person
like he
behind.
planted it himself.
Like yes, he put it there himself because he wanted them to know, them again being the government, that he was the one that did this, right?
Perhaps in a container that would like melt away with fire.
Well, that's the thing. So for someone that was so well versed in explosives and ordnances in the military, they said he knew exactly what he was doing, and if he wanted to build a bomb to take down that hotel, he could have, but he didn't. So there, again, no one really knows, right? That no one has any idea. What they're thinking was that he purposely chose a Cybertruck because he knew that it's a basically it's fucking bulletproof, right? Like it's a tank. Um, like there's evidence like that actually is bulletproof. Like the glass is bulletproof. Like, people have shot arrows and shit at the side panels. Like it's a very
Boone's dig
resilient.
it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very resilient vehicle, right? So what they're saying is he knew what he was doing. He wanted to just send a message. He didn't want to actually hurt anybody. So besides from the person that he potentially killed and put in the front seat, if it wasn't him, right? Which again, I don't know, right? I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't know anything. All I know is the information that I hear on podcasts. But it sounds like if someone like that were trying to get information out, he probably wouldn't kill himself, right? Like there's a lot of things that just don't kind of add up. And then the media and the government took the DNA sample of the passenger in or not like the driver, right, in the car. And they said that the DNA didn't match the son of Matt Berg, right, who was like recently born or something, like maybe like within the last like year. They did a DNA test and it didn't match. So then what they ran with is, oh, this was a severely mentally disturbed, veteran, right? He's got PTSD. He found out that his son wasn't his, and then he goes and does this. And luckily, he chose the wrong truck and it protected everyone and it only killed him. And it's like, that I almost is less believable than
It
the
sounds
shit
like why
that,
my wife
like,
left Twitter this morning.
yeah,
Or not left, but took it off her phone.
yeah, yeah, like that, like the quote unquote official story, right, seems less believable than like he was trying to be a whistleblower for some fucked up shit that happened in the Middle East with the US government. And he wanted to send a message, but not hurt anybody.
Well, so here we are, because now yeah, obviously mainstream media has its issues.
Right.
Mainstream media does not benefit from the truth of this story because they will get blackballed in every which way possible.
Right.
And it would also require some people to do some actual, like, real journalism.
Right.
and like uncover some shit that they fucking aren't prepared to uncover because no one is like that. Like this isn't fucking Jessica Jones. Like
Right.
no one is ready for that type of
Right.
shit.
Right. And no one gets that far and gets that sort of information on the government unless the government wants them to. Right. Like again, as I've gotten older and read a little bit more and heard a little bit more, the whole like Watergate thing kind of sounds a little bit like someone fed Bob Woodruff like that information, right? And everyone goes, "Oh yeah, obviously deep throat." Well, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But like, I think that was one of those they wanted to nail Nixon, right? They wanted to get him out, so they
What
they
do we
let
say
that.
from time to time? Just follow the money.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know where the money was. I
I
mean,
mean, we talked about this before.
Watergate's way before me, but
Like the
who
Nixon
who's to
conspiracy
bet?
is one of my favorite. It's probably my second favorite conspiracy behind the assassination of JFK. Um, it's JFK and then it's Nixon because again we've talked about it so many times now at this point. Months before Nixon gets impeached, right, and goes through this whole Watergate scandal, they remove his vice president, Spiro Agnew, for tax evasion. So they remove the sitting vice president for tax evasion, right? Then they get the sitting president for, you know, spying on his political opponent with the whole Watergate scandal. They impeach him, he resigns, right? And who takes over? Gerald
The inventor
Ford.
of the car, right?
Yeah. Gerald Ford is the guy that gets put into the presidency after Nixon gets removed. And who was Gerald Ford? But the chairman of the Warren Commission that oversaw the cover up of the JFK assassination. So, in a way, those two conspiracies are linked. But,
Well,
like, how
and
can
then
you
never mind with
not
like,
look at that and say, like, maybe someone wanted Bob Woodruff to get that information?
it wasn't Gerald Ford's reputation is that he was a push, like a complete pushover in as a
Yeah.
president or so.
Yeah. He did whatever he was told. Yeah. He
No,
was the perfect
it's
person to put in for the powers that be, right?
yeah,
The higher power, if you will, the Vince McMahon.
yeah. So I'm guessing it wasn't a fucking accident.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so again, it just brings me back to the whole Cybertruck thing where like this guy could have done legitimate damage if he wanted to, and he didn't, right? Like that is something else, right? And then again, I mean, I don't know. We have no idea. What we do know for a fact, right, is that the body that was in the truck, the DNA didn't match the son or the alleged son, right? So there's a very real possibility that it means that he wasn't the biological father. Shit happens all the time. It's really unfortunate, but it happens, right? Or it wasn't him in the truck, right? And he's
Could have
in the
been a fucking
wind.
crackhead.
He's in the wind, if you will, right? Because the other thing
Shadows.
everyone was talking about, everyone made a big deal about it because there was a Desert Eagle, right, in the car. And they said that he shot himself with the Desert Eagle and all that stuff. And it's like, that's a little bit of overkill, right? Like a Desert Eagle shoots a 50 caliber bullet.
Well, doesn't it also sound a little convenient that it was a military grade weapon
Yeah,
or a choice of ex-military personnel
right, right,
instead of just like whatever the most generic 9mm is?
right. Because again, whoever the body is in the truck, um, they had a bullet hole. So they it would lead me to believe that they were not alive when they were sitting in the truck, right? But when the explosion went off, I should say. They weren't alive when the explosion went off. So, yeah, but I mean, then like to Michaela's point, right? Like you get all these people like breaking down this video like frame by frame.
Like they know what they're fucking talking about.
There
Like
was
that,
like
like
another thing that came out, like another angle that came out of the explosion that had like a frame where you could see the explosion inside the car and you can see the body in the car. And someone goes, "Look, you can see the head turn." Like he knew it was happening. And it's like, do you know how explosions work? That's energy, right? Like what you just said makes no sense because the facts of the case, right? Like everything else is like opinion, conspiracy, conjecture, right? Whatever you want to call it. It's unknown, right? Um yeah, it's unknown, or I can't think of the word that I'm trying to use here. Unconfirmed, right? I guess that would be it. What is confirmed, right? What is not a conspiracy, what is not conjecture, is that there was a bullet hole in this guy's head. I'd be willing to say that the bullet hole showed up in the guy's head before the explosion went off.
That's the thing is like I'm not going to jump to conclusions that don't make sense, but what it sounds like if there was a unidentifiable body but an identifiable ID, I'm guessing with someone then the person surrounding this is supposed very, very intelligent, and this is his realm of expertise. It's
Right.
not like he's a chef and we're like, well, he's a three Michelin star chef, and it's like
Yeah, yeah.
doesn't make any
Or
sense.
he
Like,
worked in HR at Fort Bragg.
yeah, and especially with ex-military, everything's usually very intentional
Right,
and
right.
calculated
And this
and
guy had reached
researched.
out to multiple people
So
prior
it
to
sounds
this
like,
for an
in
interview.
my opinion, because if the ID made it, that means it was left in a very specific way,
Right,
and the body was unidentifiable very specifically. I'm
right.
guessing this dude is in like fucking Honduras or some shit
Most likely, yeah. That's
in
what
a
I
fucking
would say.
cave,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
feeding in like he's in like America, no, American. Is that the one in Spectre? It's in the fucking wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fucking old like
L'American.
coordinates, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's there.
Yeah.
What is that, Tunisia?
Morocco.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Or Tangiers,
Oh, yeah. It could be
is
that.
that
Yeah.
Morocco?
Yes. I think so. I think is that the capital of Morocco, maybe?
I don't know, dude.
I don't
Like,
know. I
and
have no
forget is
idea.
not my realm of expertise.
No. No.
Um, yeah, man, that's how I'm seeing this.
Yeah. That's what I think too. Again, in my uninformed opinion, I think he's in the wind. He's gone. So,
But he's still here.
yeah.
He's gone, but he's here.
Yeah. The call was coming
This
from
does feel, hey,
inside the
by the way,
house.
this does feel like a fucking Bond movie.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. So the weirdest, this isn't even the weirdest fucking part about all of this. Are you ready for this? I saved it for the end. The weirdest part of all of this was in his emails to all these people that he was trying to interview or have an interview with before the 31st. He said that the drones that have been flying over the East Coast are Chinese, and they've known this for a while. They've been doing this for a while, which checks out because a different podcast that I listened to like a week or two ago said that this is the third year in a row that right around Christmas time, there have been drones flying on the East Coast. And he goes, most people just don't remember because there's so much fucked up shit that happens throughout the year. They're like, they don't remember that every December, like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, everyone goes nuts because there's drone sightings flying all over the East Coast and they think there's aliens coming or whatever. It goes, they literally said this is the third year in a row. You can go back and Google this. You can find like news articles from 2023 and 2022. So this guy, the Cybertruck guy, in his email to both, Shuamate or Shoamate, whatever the hell his name is, and Sean Ryan, said that those drones are Chinese, right? And they're being propelled by what is it, gravitical or whatever the word is, propulsion. Like it's gravitical propulsion, which means they use gravity to move. And he claims that only the United States and China have this technology of gravity propulsion systems, which is now this is like the real Pepe Sylvia moment because if you go back and listen to people that have had encounters with these, the crafts, right? Like Commander David Fravor, saw the Tic Tac, and guys like Lou Elizondo or Bob Lazar, they all talk about it moves in ways that don't make sense because we don't have a propulsion system that has any of that, right? Like one of the things that Commander Fravor had said was they didn't really pick up a heat signature, right? And again, everyone's like, oh, well, this and that. Well, what about this? And like this dude was like a 22-year fighter pilot. Like he was in the United States Navy or in the Air Force or whatever. He was a fighter pilot for like 20 fucking years. Like he knows shit that no one else knows. Like if he looks at a radar and sees something, he's like, "Oh, that's a plane," or "Oh, that's a fighter jet," or "I don't know what the fuck that is. I've never seen anything like that before." And he was saying that like the heat signature didn't make any sense. There was no heat trail, right? Because in a fighter jet, you see the trail of heat from the jet engines and shit like that. It didn't make any sense. So all these people have all talked about gravitational propulsion. And now this one guy who was in the wind claims that the US and China both have, you know, gravitical propulsion system craft.
Here's my only thing with that. Now, we don't know if it's a threat or not, but here are just some thoughts on the case. So it's 3 consecutive years of the same thing around the same time.
Yeah.
The US and China both have the same technology. I'm guessing because as much as we shit on our government, the government is pretty fucking powerful.
Yeah.
And usually things don't happen in this country unless they want it to.
Correct.
So you're telling me that these drones are just like here, not by our permission, not by our like allowance or cooperation, and we should see it as a threat? I just don't know if I'm buying that.
Yeah. No, well, so again, what these people have said was it's not a threat necessarily. It's China showing like, hey, don't fuck with us type of deal, right? Like we have the same technology you do. So it's not like a direct threat, right? Not like, hey, we're gonna fly these drones all over your East Coast just to and then we're gonna like blow shit up, right? Like it's not like that. It's like, hey, fuckface, you think you have the best technology in the world? We have the same shit. So just a heads up, right? Just so we're on the same page here. We're working with the same stuff. Like that's kind of what it's about. Not like because it's a
So
non-confrontational,
so
right?
these
It's like
drones are just a dick
it's a
measuring contest.
non-confrontational show of force, if you will, which sounds wicked fucking gay.
Yeah, I was gonna say everyone seems very concerned.
Yeah.
That's what I mean is like the only people who seem concerned, like this, like I just don't see because obviously people are probably sitting here like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, I knew it. It was a gravity-based propulsion system. I knew it. It had to have been. And it's like, no, you didn't. Shut
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you see, China's flexing on the US. Like I said, I kind of would lean to believing that those drones would not be here if it wasn't like cooperative or at least like allowed or under supervision, like something.
Right.
Because the other piece is, right, and this isn't just government, whatever. This is like anything. If you allow them here and don't make a big stink about it, Then you can monitor and study and track and view and gather info.
Right, which is
You
I
can do
think what they
and you
were
can do
doing.
whatever you want. So if China's showing up going, oh, see, balls on the table, US is like, sure, balls on the table, go nuts. All we're gonna do is make sure we know exactly what you have.
Yeah, which is probably what's going on.
And that's why they're probably not stopping it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Well,
So that's
also
the thing is
like
like what if people
you
think it's
can't
like a
really
big deal.
engage because then it becomes like then you basically get a hot war.
But this is the thing, like no,
You
like
start shooting that shit down.
China
Like
and the US aren't gonna go to war because someone fucking shot down a drone. Like
fair, yeah.
that's not a fucking act of war. Especially if it's like bird flew into it.
Yeah.
Like, but so this is what I mean is like
Oh, birds aren't real, man. Come on.
people are gonna get bent out of shape about it and be like, oh, see, China, they're bitching us out.
Yeah.
Are they? Are they? Because if you can allow it, contain it, control it, view it, observe it, gather info on it, then you have the upper hand.
Right. Which is exactly what I think is going on. I think they're just observing and learning,
Yeah.
which is funny because the government has come out and said we don't know what they are, which is a lie, right? They know what it is, right? If this guy who's former military writes in an email to Sean Ryan and says this is what they are, again, the US government knows what they are, right? So if the government comes out, right, and says, "Oh, we don't know what they are, but they're not hostile, so don't worry." Right? That was the big issue like a month ago when all this stuff started happening. Everyone was like, "You're going to sit there and tell me you don't know what they are, but don't worry because they're not hostile, but you don't know what they are. So how do you know they're not
No,
hostile if you don't know what
they
they
know
are?"
exactly what
They
they
know
are.
exactly what they are. They know exactly what they are. They know exactly what's going on, and they're just telling people, "Well, it's not hostile." Because it's a half truth, right? Of each thing. It's a because it's a lie that they don't know what they are because they do, right? But it is true that that people shouldn't be worried because they're not hostile, right? But if they admit that they know what they are, then they have to actually explain what they
They
are.
have to answer to that.
Right. Right.
And the Ameri so this is the other piece too. The American population and the politicians are too stupid
Well,
to
because that's the
handle
other
this
thing
type of
too.
information.
Politicians didn't know about it either.
Good. So this is the other piece, right?
There's
So
like
the
people in Congress that like are legitimately trying to figure out what the fuck that was and what's going on with all the drones. So it's like it's again, it's one of those things where the U and again, like people that this is why as much as I go on and say, you know, I love conspiracies and I love this and you know all this other shit that's fun. It is fun. But at the same time, the US government is so big and so dysfunctional that it's really fucking hard to figure shit out and like keep shit under wraps, right? Like if there's a like a something going on, right? Like these drones, right? These gravitational propulsion system drones from China that are flying around. And say the US military, the Department of Defense, right, knows exactly what they are because they have the same technology, right? So the head of the DoD goes, "Oh yeah. I don't know what those are, but they do, right?" And then someone in Congress goes, "Well, how do we not know what these are? We need to figure this out." And like people like you and me can sit here and be like, how do people in Congress not know what this is, but the DoD does? It's because everything in the government is so siloed. And especially when you get into the military and the intelligence community, everything is a need to know basis. So you can be fucking Ted Kennedy, right? Who was the longest serving senator in fucking I think the US history. He was a US senator for like fucking 50 years or whatever. There was probably shit that he had no idea was going on in the DoD because he doesn't talk to people at the CIA every day or he doesn't talk to people at the FBI every day. So he has no fucking clue. So someone like that, right? That a long-serving member of Congress It's like, well, how do we not know what these are? We need to investigate this. We need to figure it out. Yeah, because they have no fucking clue. Don't worry. The other half of the government that deals in that shit, they know exactly what's going on. Right. So that's one of those things like when I say it's tough because we say the government, it's not everyone in the government. It's just certain parts of the government. Because the congressmen are just as dumb as us.
The ones that talk to you are stupid.
Yeah. So we got drones. We got gravitational drones. So it's kind of a bummer. Um, Although this doesn't necessarily disprove aliens. Um, Basically, I think most of these UFO alien sightings and like the Tic Tac and all that stuff um, was just military personnel, probably not aliens. Again, that doesn't completely disprove aliens, right? Maybe the aliens gave us that technology. You could play with that one, right? You could play with that idea. Um, but I think most of the things that have been seen and called UFOs and UAPs and whatever, I think it's probably either just a US or Chinese drone at this point. If it's been put out there that, we have this technology. Again, this is a guy that was in the military that worked in a drone unit, right? He knew explosives and he knew drones. Like those were his two things that he did. So he could also be full of shit too. That's the other thing. Who knows, right? But if we choose to believe him, um, then it's most likely probably wasn't aliens that people have been seeing in the sky. But we can still hold out hope for the aliens and the
I mean,
asteroid.
they're
We're
out
all
there.
we're always holding
Just
out for the asteroid.
yep.
I'm a big fan of the interdimensional beings thing. That's a fun one. That are harvesting our souls.
You can have it.
That's a fun one. That we're vessels and our souls like power something or whatever. I don't know. Who knows? But
Some of you people need fucking religion again.
yeah, well, that's a fun one. That could be like a whole separate episode. Um, that the basis of religion is from these interdimensional beings because they gave early humans religion in order to protect the soul. Because if everyone died and their souls were corrupted, then they were no use to these other beings. So
Mm-hmm.
religion was created.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of really weird shit out there.
Taking
That's a fun
Twitter
one.
off
I
my.
think that
I'll say I'll be taking Twitter off my phone now.
yeah, yeah. I think that's probably the most fun. So,
Yeah. Again. Yeah. Yep. 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 Yep.
on that note, you want to wrap this up?
We can wrap this up. Um, so I can officially say that I completed Duolingo Italian.
Let's go.
It took me 157 days, so less than 6 months.
Yeah,
Um, it's I mean, dude, honestly, I probably average like 40 minutes a day. It was probably something like that. I would try to just like kind of do it in the morning,
yeah,
like before the day started. And or like do like it would be like 25 minutes in the morning and I'd do like 15 minutes at night or something. It would something like that.
right, right.
And closer to speaking Italian, yes. Definitely really far away from speaking Italian. Um, so to be fair, and like going back to it when I said I'd like started it, like I started it because it was recommended from her aunt and uncle, and then they hooked me because it was like a game and it reminded me of like when I was a kid. So they fucking got me with the stars and the Diamond League and the gold. Like they got me in every which way
They
possible.
just gamified it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I'm like, and then when I was like, I'm like full on addicted to this shit. I'm like, all right, let me like I will try to beat the game.
Right.
Like that'll be like what I try to do. Um, and in it, so it's like I didn't know this. There is like as far as like language goes, there are like I guess universal levels of like what it is. So it's like you have A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. I think it stops at C2, and C2 would be like fluent. Uh, um, I could be off on that, whatever. It's like, and I think it's like the CEFR system, which I don't know, whatever. And Duolingo says like, dude, we're talking like A1 or like A2 ish or so, which is really just like a basic understanding of it, and that's kind of like as far as it gets.
Right.
Um, so I like kind of like knew that like I'm not going to use this tool to learn the language. I did want to finish it out and get as far as I could with it. So I completed it. Now I'll just go back through and make everything gold because you go back through it and not only did you do the lesson, you make it legendary. And then when it's
Oh,
legendary, everything turns gold.
whoa.
So I'll go back through it. But
It's like when you go
yeah,
back through to beat the Pokemon game with five side
exact
ups.
where it's who titting ass. Um, or it's like in Mario. I used to do this in Mario. So it would be like you would beat the game, you would beat Bowser, but then you would go back and you would
Yeah,
try to get every star that you could.
right.
That's effectively what I'm doing.
It's every video
Or
game
Super
ever.
Mario 64.
You beat the main course, right? And then you go
Yeah.
back and do all the side quests
Yeah.
afterwards.
I'm doing the side quest now,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we'll see. I would like to continue learning the language. I feel like it kind of like centers my fucking retardation. Um, but I don't know what my strategy is going to be because I've been one thing I tried doing was twofold. One, hopefully would help me learn the language a little bit. Two, it would help me learn the recipes. I actually found a channel that does recipes all in Italian, but like dudes from Italy, not like a learning level. So they don't speak not only at a speed that I can handle. So I have to on YouTube, I have to go and knock it down 10%.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people from Napoli and their fucking dialect is crazy. Like I put the Italian subtitles on and it is not matching. Like what they're saying is not what is coming up in those subtitles. It is fucking crazy. Um,
That's
so
the thing about Italy. My grandmother used to say that all the time was so obviously like her family was from northern Italy and she said if you take her or her family, right, and put them with someone from southern Italy or Sicily, they can't talk to each other. Like they don't
yeah,
know, like they have a really hard time communicating.
yeah, like so you can look up and that it's like that. Like Venetian is the same thing. Like
Yeah.
Venetian is a separate language. Um, Sicilian is technically its own because when I was watching The Godfather, I was getting confused because I'm like, that's not right. I'm like, that's incorrect. And then I looked up, I'm like, what the fuck was that? And it goes Italian parentheses Sicilian. And I was like, ah shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was it was more than correct, just in Sicilian.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like someone we've said this before, like someone from Mississippi might be hard to understand, or
True.
like the coach from the Water Boy. Like,
Yeah.
um, people probably have a hard time understanding me. Like that shit happens, but yeah. So my recipes, which is good because I like kind of figured out a handful, and I've definitely like learned some cooking techniques from it. But it's also really good for putting me to sleep. Um, for whatever reason. So I don't know if that strategy is going to work outside of me using it to learn some of the techniques on these recipes that I like have questions about.
Yeah.
I did also see them prep a porchetta, so like the whole pig, like whatever, at the place that her and I got sandwiches at in Florence. That was pretty cool.
Ooh, that is pretty cool. So,
So, yeah, but ultimately, I don't know how. I don't know what's next outside of finishing all the side quests.
yeah,
Which
yeah, yeah.
fuck,
So you're
there's
just
gonna
going
be
to
a
become fluent.
lot of them.
You're just going to be fluent in Italian. I got it. You'll
Yep,
be
it'll just.
C2 by June.
I'll just decide.
Do they have
Um,
like other levels? So like
no,
effectively like you beat the game, right?
I
Like
did.
they don't do they have like a paid for version where you can continue on and like become fluent?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's because I did end up. So this is how they got me. I ended up paying to continue, so that because it made beating the game a lot easier for me.
Right, right.
Um, because they fucking gave me a free trial when I was in Italy, and I was like full on autism. Like
Yeah.
they got me. They got me so good. Like actually their stock price is like 330 a share or something too. I was like, fuck, I know where that came from.
Yeah.
Because they absolutely worked me on that one. Um, and the thing is, like, I wouldn't have been able to beat the game or the side quest if I didn't pay for it. So I'm actually fine with that part. But
Right.
and I've spent that money on way worse things. Um, but no, I mean, you just get to a point where you can't really like it just is what it is, and that's where it ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and even with it, it's like so another limitation, it would be like, so I'm sure Spanish had the same shit. It's like, hey, there's the present, there's the past tense, there's the imperfect tense, there's
Right.
the whatever, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
They would just kind of throw it at you sometimes. And like sometimes on the side quest, I just get fucking stuck because it's really hard for me to remember the difference between um
The
like
past participle and
right,
like
or it's because they don't ask you that. It will say um like in Italian, like andare means to go. So
right.
like andrò means I will go. But like andare means like I will have gone, or it means like I put it just
Yeah.
it gets weird like that.
I
So it's
could
like
go or
so,
something.
or
Yeah.
yeah, but then like that would be a little different. But like yeah, it's like or even in the past, it's like I went, I had gone, I will have gone. It's like
Right. Right.
fuck, it's hard to translate this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's tough.
and that's the hard part with Duolingo is like you'll get to a lesson and they just like throw it at you. Like there's
Right.
no teaching element to it.
Right. Right.
Um, but that's the thing is like if you look up on Reddit, whatever, it's just all that everyone will say it's just a piece of it. It's just a tool. Like it is. There is no one way to learn just to learn because even people say it's like oh immersion, just go there.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people say it's like that might not be the fastest way because you don't know what the fuck you're doing or what the fuck is going on. Like,
Right.
and it
Right.
can be very confusing. So it's like you need a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Like that's kind of how it's phrased
Right.
in a way.
Yeah. That makes
Or
sense.
you could be like 1, 2, 3 years old and just be surrounded by the language and you just magically learn it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I think it's usually by like somewhere between 10 and 12 is where like the language center of the brain like kind of stops growing, right?
Yeah.
So they say like if you can teach someone a language before they turn 12, like they'll be fluent, right? Like they'll
Yeah.
remember it more. So, but yeah, I don't have a language to teach anybody, my kid, before he turns 12. So
I can
he's
barely
gonna be
speak
a
English.
he's gonna be a dumb old English speaker like me.
I've been trying to teach Leo some Italian commands. I don't know if they're landing.
You may have to use French 'cause if he's
Fuck
poodle.
that.
Yeah, why? Hey, he's half poodle.
French?
Yeah.
No, no, I'd have to learn Australian because he is so I mean like way back generationally, yes, once upon a time there was a doodle and I'm sorry, a poodle and a lab, but he's labradoodle labradoodle down the
Ah,
line.
uh-huh. But still, he's got poodle in
Yeah, we ain't doing French. Actually, when we were in Italy, there was a leather shop. The dog only knew English.
him. What about Romanch?
No, that was Florence. I would say too far from Vatican City. I think that's what the Swiss Guard. That's what that was the Swiss
Yeah.
Guard episode, right? Yeah,
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Oh, I should have focused more on the Romanch. That's two Archer references in one episode, I think. Right? Didn't we have one earlier?
we did.
Yeah. It's always a good day. It's a good day when you could get two Archer references.
I
That's a
mean,
show
truth
I
is,
would love to go back and watch.
anytime you're talking like government bullshit, though, it's like Archer's
Yeah.
probably gonna show up.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So my final thought, should be a quick one. We watched this movie called Carry On, not too long ago. Um, it has Taron Egerton, who is Eggsy from The Kingsman, or other people might know him as Elton John, right, from the Elton John biopic. Um, he's great. I love Taron Egerton, and then it also has Jason Bateman. It has a couple other people in it, but those are the two big ones. So effectively, it is, um, and no real spoilers, right? This is from the trailer. It's a guy that's trying to use a TSA agent to get some sort of contraband through TSA security. And he just kind of like threatens him and walks him through this whole thing. Pretty good movie. It's not one of those movies where I'm like dying to go back and watch again. Um, it's so it is a good movie though because it hooks you and you get some legit fucking anxiety. There's like different points in the
Great.
movie.
That's what I need in my entertainment.
There's there's
More
some
anxiety.
points in the movie where I was like sitting on the literally on the edge of my seat being like what the fuck is going to happen here? Like what is going on? But to me, that's a sign of a good movie because it hooked me, right? It got me invested in the characters and what was going on. And I think Taron Egerton and Jason Bateman are both phenomenal actors in their own right. So again, like the movie itself, again, good movie. It didn't like knock my socks off or anything, but it was very well acted. I will say that. Like I will give credit to both Edgerton and Bateman there for a hell of an acting job from their parts. But I would recommend it. Right? It's a pretty good movie. Um, Again, I'm not going to sit here and say you have to watch it, right? But if you want something that's good, it's fast paced, that's going to keep you interested for the full, hour and a half to 2 hours, that's the movie. You're definitely not going to be bored when you're watching that movie. So, shout out to Carry On. But yeah, that's it. I don't know what it's on. Hold on. Amy, do you remember what Carry On was on? Was that Amazon? Netflix. It's on Netflix. It's not Amazon. So, um, you can watch Carry On Netflix. Shout out to those guys. Another good movie by Netflix. Put out some Netflix and Apple TV. I still think Apple TV is the best for their shows and movies. They're just you can't beat them. But Netflix has put out some good ones too. So yeah, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe up above, hit the thumbs up button down below. Subscribe if you're an audio only guy as well. Leave us a review on Spotify and iTunes. That would be great. You can get us on Instagram at Sarcasm Speaks Pod. Twitter is sarcasm_speaks. And the Facebook page is Sarcasm Speaks. Check out the show notes below. Support those sponsors, support us, get some cool shit. And until next time, good night, everybody.